by our taxpayers. Now, so I would think an essential part of a fare study would include some sort of survey, north and south. The southern end of the island perhaps benefits from its connections to Oak Harbor. We have a connector route to the north, but anyway, right now it's prepaid by the taxes that we and everybody on the island, and on Camino, of course, are paying. Two concerns. I would want this study to not only figure out the cost of physically implementing fare collection, which is a direct cost, but a very important cost that is often overlooked is that fare collection, even if you do it 10 seconds per or 15 seconds per rider, you multiply that by 100 riders, and you get a 15-minute delay on the total length of the route going from Oak Harbor to the ferry. 15-minute delay on a route that has to meet a 30-minute schedule of the ferries. So we have certain constraints that other counties do not have. And if charging fares slows down our routes and requires that we add an additional bus or two, we're talking about very large chunks of money indirectly caused by charging fares. This doesn't even ask the question that Rick asked, and that is how much revenue would it bring in? Studies have been done in the past that indicate a cut in ridership that is pretty dramatic. So I would hope that the study would estimate what the cut in ridership would be on our system. And of course, some of that could be ascertained partly by the survey. So those are points that I think are very important to be part of a study. Does it cause time delays? And I'm talking about even very short automatic swipe a card. Well, there are the people who don't have the card. There are the people who don't know whether their kids have to have the card. There are people who didn't know that we had that requirement or didn't have their card with them. It does slow down the system systematically. And long routes are slowed down more, the number of stops they make, the number of people that they have to pick up. So those are some of my concerns that I would toss into the study bucket. And I certainly want Island Transit to be sustainable. That's why I'm on this board. And I want it to be financially sustainable. My reading of our finances right now is that we are sustaining our current level of service and will sustain it through the rest of the year without additional help for our current level of services. If we add services like connected routes, we need that additional help. So you can see maybe that my position is different from some members of the board, but I think many of them would agree that those are important issues.
Okay, well, thank you, Jim. And Jackie.
I just want to, and I'm sure you know this, you've done this many times, but to make sure we get input from those who are on very fixed incomes, those on Medicaid, those folks that are using Island Transit, paratransit, and how other entities that charge fares, how much revenue they get from Medicaid, because I know then we could bill Medicaid, and if there's some other resources for those folks that can't really afford a fare no matter what it is, or can only afford half a fare. I'm sure you're used to getting that input, but I still want that forgotten.
Rick, did you?
Yeah, I was just gonna throw in comment on Jim's analysis of that we're going to remain on the plus side of our budget, or perhaps building up our reserves. You've got to remember a huge portion of what we build up is due to the fact that gas prices have been low. So that's had an impact on us, a good impact on us. I'm grateful for. Nevertheless, we can't, they're volatile as well. And I just think that it's pretty evident, and I think, Julie, you said this earlier, pretty evident that the lawmakers at in the Capitol are looking at us for ways that we are being proactive in recovering some revenue. And I just, albeit, yes, it might slow buses down, or it may slow down the route a little bit. I find it, I think saying slow route going from Oak Harbor to Clinton, or from Oak Harbor or north, whatever the case may be, down by 15 minutes or so per route. I think there are systems that can be put in place. It's working for other transit systems. So if we're only making $100,000 a year on it, it's $100,000 a year more than what we have. But I do agree that the initial startup costs, the initial outfitting costs, and then the ongoing cost of collecting revenue, that it does cost money to collect revenue and such. But I think that we can develop a system that is that we're going to come out positive with it. And if we're making revenue, the people that ride the buses that I have talked to, and it's been literally hundreds, are all willing to pay a fare. So I think that we can come up with some sort of system. And that's why I say I think the study should be more focused, or we should be focused on how do we implement a fare system where we're going to make a decent recovery.
Let me add something on a meeting that I had with joint districts, farmhouse gang, they call it. The first one I attended, comment from, I believe, the Watcom director said, are you guys still planning to do ridership with fares or without fares? And I said, we're discussing all options right now. And his comment was that I hope that you guys have a fare system that is consistent with our fare systems, where you have a card that we go from Island Transit to Skagit, you swipe the card, you keep right on going. Now Ken, our executive director, followed up on that, and I think I've got this right. His discussions with Skagit was they are going to change their fares, their carding system, their electronic system, in the very near future, and that for us to go into that system now, it would cost about $750,000 to go fully electronic. And Sean, step in on this if you know more about this than I do. And they're planning on changing, I think, within the period of 2 years, to a new software system where everybody in the Orca system are changing. And that's why I think Ken was talking about going to a cash system on the interim basis. Do you want to add to that conversation, please, for what you know?
Well, that's about correct. That's exactly what he informed us of also. Yeah, not really much more to add to that. I guess my question on that would be, if we go to a cheaper system, then in 2 years would we have to, because eventually, we would want to be online with SCAT and Lockham, so whatever they were doing.
People should be able to get on the bus any place in Highland County with a magnetic electronic card, walk on the bus, swipe it, and you keep going. The accountability is there because the funding is all electronic. The inventory or the counting of the ridership and the types of riders who are going in there. People have a variety of customized or discounted cards for their special needs. You're going to know exactly what that is. And in the simplistic side of my analysis of that is, it probably is going to be more accurate information and less onerous on the accounting side of our operation. And the more streamlined that we can make it and get to accuracy should be one of our goals in our recovery program. And in fact, one of the points of our recovery plan was we are going to look at all options for increasing our revenue. Just a quick comment on this about the prepaid that we have a prepaid system. Sure, it is funded by some of our taxes here, but so are the other districts who are charging are also prepaid in that sense, but they still augment their revenue stream by charging.
Well, if it really augments the revenue stream, and with an accurate assessment of the impact on the number of riders and the services that maybe aren't there for people who can't afford them, nobody could argue against it. Those are the kinds of questions we want as good an answer as we can get. Also, not ignoring the constraints that we have on either county of meeting as many ferries as possible. And those run on a 30-minute schedule.
And also, if you could provide the systems like electronic kiosks that are available in community transit, people are able to buy cards there, and my understanding is they can update those cards on the internet. Is that correct? Okay. So I see some members of the audience nodding their head, yes, we're not going to take input, but we will take head nods, okay? So, Jill.
So, listening to the conversation too, I'd be interested in knowing what the feasibility is to share admin costs with another county. If we're on the same system as them, could we pay them an administrative fee off of everything we collect, and rather than creating our own processing and administrative team here to do that, would it be more cost effective to just pay a percent to Skagit County to do all that, and then they could cut us a check back? I'm not sure we need to duplicate all of the services that cost to process that money, but I don't know that. Then also I'm interested in what kind of modeling would be in place to show how we would respond to escalating costs. So what we have is a sales tax based revenue stream. But as wages increase, which they should, because I wrote down I wrote down what's important to me in transit, and one of them is, quality buses and drivers and transit staff. Just because the economy takes a downturn doesn't mean wages do. And so if we're running simply on sales tax revenue, I don't quite understand how we're going to keep that model working in the long term when costs escalate and not necessarily in proportion to sales tax revenues. So that's something that I'd like to look at. And then in terms of the upfront costs, I'm sure that's going to, it will show a while for cost recovery. I guess my initial feedback there is, since the legislatures found it important to put our money to be fare contingent, that I would have a little expectation that they were in the game for putting our fare system in place in terms of what it will cost us to put that infrastructure on our buses. Since it's a requirement of theirs, I'm assuming that there is a desire to help us achieve that goal, if that's the direction we're going.
That's an excellent point. It is, and we've talked to Buzz, the part of the electronic or using a system like SCAT does and Snows for collecting fares, the admin sharing, and that goes right along with the talks and negotiations that we're planning to have with them about covering which part of what counties, who's covering where, going to borders here and there, and it's all about partnering. But yes, I think that because the admin costs, I think, would be, it just stands to reason to be reduced significantly, where it be, they're collecting for us, and we're basically contracting with them to do this collection for us, and they pay us our share.
So how about
I
Jill,
think
for
they
your
would be
question?
amenable to it.
What if I just write down how could it be funded? And land options. Is there maybe grants that could help
Yeah.
fund that as well?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I just wanted to plant a seed that one of my expectations is that there will be grants, since this is something that is really being advocated for at that level of government, that they might want to put some money behind their advocacy.
Put in.
Because the startup cost are what will skew the cost recovery over time.
Okay, next, okay, excuse me.
Excuse me. Thank you. It's interesting, when we talk about handing off some of the administrative costs to other agencies, you know, there's always been voices out there that say, we have too many transit agencies, way too many. When you start to look at the Puget Sound area, when you go to Pierce, King, Snohomish, Skagit, Island, and go further north, I think, Jill, you make a good point, but I think that may kick the door open a little harder when you start handing off certain functions of a transit agency to those voices that say, we need to consolidate this. This is getting totally out of hand. Everybody's got their service requirements. Is there Saturday service on this one? Yes. What about the next transit agency? Their area that I want to go to, oh no, there isn't any weekend service. And it goes on and on and on. So there are strong voices that say that this should be consolidated. And the other thing about what happens, as we all know, approximately 20% of what generated through the fare box or Orca cards or whatever cards you have is about 20%. But interesting as it is, community transit now is struggling to get 0.3% to max out their the sales tax. And in addition to that, there's a fare increase in July. These two go hand in hand until you max out what you're allowed to get on sales tax. Then what happens is, if it doesn't get increased, which logically it won't, once you hit that 10%, then the fares will keep going up. When you have fares not coordinating with others, as talk was regarding Walker and stuff, it must be, specifically in this type of a region that we're all residing in. The other thing is, if we look at, well, are we going to have cash fares? Are we going to have passes? Then we get into children, low-income senior citizens, on and on and on. There's all kinds of different fare structures. When you get into some cash fares, then it becomes a little more complicated too. You not only have the cards that you can tap, as we've heard, and that's just implementing that system is very expensive. But if you're going to have cash too, that creates some other problems. How do we handle the cash? When does it get taken out of the fare box? What's the responsibility regarding drivers and the fares and stuff? Do we need to have cameras on all of the coaches? What's going on here? People are refusing to pay. What happens to the drivers when we try to collect fares? On and on and on with cash. But, so it's going to be interesting as this proceeds down the road, but there's many different obstacles in a way of trying to get a school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? Ryan, do you have any other comments or suggestions before we move on?
Well, I guess what I think we probably should do is we could document this, lay this out, and come back with, I mean, I said earlier that there's a lot of different ways to approach this. Maybe I should categorize these questions and issues that you want addressed through the study, if it is a study, and look at the options we have and kind of give our recommendation on what the best way to approach answering those questions. Whether it's contracting out, whether it's a peer. I mean, the last set of issues may be better to look at it within a peer review process. How have all the other agencies that address these questions? Or maybe it's a combination of some sort. But right now, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of different ways we can approach it. I think it'd be good if we could narrow it down and say, these are the key questions we need to address, and here's some of the better ways to approach them.
Okay, are you going to come back to us, and when are you going to come back to us, if you are, with those key questions that have to be addressed?
Those wheels are dangerous.
Brian? Well, I think it'd be relatively easy to, well, why don't we aim for the next meeting?
Good idea.
Yeah,
That's
that's great.
two-
Just
two
have it,
weeks,
yeah.
In 2 weeks, well, 2.5.
We'll put together a little team and watch that, and we'll kind of walk through this and then talk with your staff and see if we can get an agreement to make sure we cover all the questions. And I tried to write down
Yeah.
everything,
Right.
but I also tried to listen at the same time.
And would you also come back with kind of an explanation of where this ORCA program is, when it's going to transition, what is really transitioning, and how would we fit into that transition period? You know, I'm looking for the what, when, why, where, how much type of thing.
And I guess the other thing that would seem to make sense, you've talked about Whatcom and Skagit numerous times. You talked about potential for integrating parts of this. It would seem to me that it would make sense to engage Whatcom and Skagit in these conversations as well.
I think Snohomish also, I mean,
Yes,
yeah.
so most of this board's from the north end of the island, so we think north. But Jim represents a district that is, and so does Rick, actually, that connects in Snohomish County, both Camino Island and the ferry. So in terms of our user groups, more even than Whatcom is Skagit.
And that's one of the things that makes this so challenging, is because of the fact of, you know, we're separate, or, you know, the island's separated, and you've got to go through so many different jurisdictions to.
Now, let me add this, that in my conversations with Senator Bailey, she did not want to set a date or a schedule in which we can attempt to get together with the other transit district representatives until this legislative period came to a conclusion. It was concluded. And so it appears that we could be in a position to do that, and I will give her a call, and I will also follow up with Representative Hayes to see if we can get a group of dates bracketed so that we can get that information to this board to make sure people are going to be here, so that you guys could possibly be here and perhaps have representatives from the other transit districts here, even if we have to go and meet, you know, in some other neutral or common place that's convenient for everybody. But this might be a discussion that would help by having our legislative body here too, at least initially. Any comments on that from anybody in the board?
Are you talking about like for our meeting in 2 weeks to have them here?
No, I have
Because
to.
I think we need to have a little bit better idea of what we want to do.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about after that. I think this is probably going to be an August, September time period. And even if we have a goal set in September to pick some dates with our representatives, as long as it's going to be driven by them too. You know, trying to get 20 people on a date that works is not always easy.
Well, I think it's, I like the idea that you'll call them too, just to let them know we are working on this.
Yeah. Okay.
So I guess my comment on that is, in my conversations with both Skagit and Whatcom, I didn't speak with community. There's a lot of support, and
A
verbally.
lot of support for what?
From the general managers of those two organizations to support Island Transit.
Support
And-
Island Transit, how? Is this on the fare issues, support, or?
Broader than that, I mean, on the
Okay.
fare issue, Skagit said that they have a number of devices that they make available to you to put on your buses today. So it's both on the immediate things, but I think also on facilitating a long-term relationship that supports all of the transit systems, maintain their sustainability, viability in the long term. It's all been very positive in the conversations I've had. I have not had them come and shake their fist at all about what's happening and their perspectives. So I think it's what I'm hearing is much more positive than what I walked into when I walked in here. The perspective I heard from you was was a little bit stronger than what I'm hearing from them. So I think it's a really positive thing, and I think that the potential is great that you can develop a really strong partnership for the long term.
Well, that's encouraging to hear. I'm not sure that was the relationship in the past. And I'm not going to go specific on my conversations with someone, but I'm not sure that the relationship between the previous executive director and some of those other districts was all that smooth from my conversations with a limited number of people.
Which I think is an opportunity.
Yeah.
I think the future is it's a lot brighter.
Good, thank you.
In terms of when Brian leaves and kind of looks through our conversations, are we, as a board, open at all to the idea that fairs may not pay for themselves, or have we already decided that we're going in a fair direction? And we need to figure out how fairs are gonna work? Or are we open to hearing that maybe they don't? I want to know.
I'm committed to having an open mind.
Yeah.
Okay, and Jackie's open-minded. Okay, Rick, I know where you're at.
I think we need to be
Okay.
fair.
So, okay, so I thought that was important just in terms of scoping, because, I mean, I'm pretty convinced that fair's the way to go, but I also am concerned that I'm pretty convinced before I have any information that proves that to me. And so I think that what you're hearing is that there's an open-mindedness to understand the truthfulness of that preconception. However, my one caveat might be I need that to also include some type of modeling on how you do cost recovery as costs escalate in your tax bases. I mean, we are relatively steady taxpayer. So it can't be a snapshot look. It's got to be an ongoing. I didn't know if they just focused on like how we're going to get the fair, then that's a different focus.
I'm willing to listen if we can.
I know you are. He's willing to listen.
We'll listen.
Thank you.
That's where my comment is too. Let's say, keep an open mind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is this going to involve looking at paratransit fares as well? Is that
The whole package.
Because then you have Medicaid recovery.
And I understand that one of the resisting points for Skagit about coming to our border is that they have to provide paratransit within 3/4 of a mile of their fixed route. And that's a cost that they don't want to set a precedence on and get caught up into that. Now, essentially, they're avoiding their obligation to serve their community by having us overlap into that area because we don't have an obligation to provide paratransit in another district. I kind of feel badly about those people who need paratransit assistance in Skagit and in those areas where technically they have an obligation to serve. In my opinion, off the highway, it's fixed route, but I still think it's 3/4 of a mile off of the fixed route that we have to serve and the other districts serve too.
One of the points that sticks with me is that Skagit's not providing fixed route service on a highway, Highway 20. So it's not a county road, right? It's not a side road. It's a state highway that they're not providing fixed route service. A little out of your scope, but I'm just going to give you the information in case it can ever come up in your conversations that, the paratransit part is concerning. Even more concerning to me is how you have a transit system that doesn't provide service on a major highway. I find that mind-boggling. But I'm new at transit, so maybe I'll find additional things to boggle my mind. That's
I think
because.
that's out of the scope of our study.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, we have gone through agenda items 1 through 4. Brian, thank you very much for coming all of you who came in here. This is helpful. We'll see you at the next meeting.
All right, sounds good.
You may
Thank you.
May I ask for clarification? Are you just having Ryan, or are you adding anybody else to the meeting?
For right now, we want that consolidated feedback
Okay.
from DOT on this issue.
Okay. I just want to make sure so I know how to set it.
So that's your understanding, Pete? Board understanding?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks, probably can't, pretty short notice for anybody else.
Thank you.
Okay, next on, thanks again. On our, we have an executive session, and this is not a, this is a executive session regarding the contract for the executive director. No action will be taken at this executive session, and it will be only the sitting board members and the attorney who will be sitting in on this executive session.
And there may be action afterwards.
And there may be action after the executive session. So would it be more convenient for us to go into a separate room rather than clear everybody out of here? Because you're going to do a little preview of where
Is
we're
that room
going
open?
with this. Yeah.
Could go into the other conference room? Want to do that?
Yep, lead the way. So we are going into executive session, and we'll be in there for how much time? 15 minutes?
Possibly 10, we can extend it.
We can extend. So we're going to be, we'll be back here at 11:15. Thank you.
So, is there any chance that, if the road is built,